So we have a big discussion topic we want to talk about. In the world of comic books, we wouldn't be allowed to call ourselves a comic book channel if we didn't talk about this topic. So Diamond Distributors has halted distribution of new comics due to the COVID-19 to coronavirus. Now, for those of you who aren't as deep in the know with your weekly comics, Diamond Distributors they almost have a monopoly on distributing comics. They're the number one provider of new comic books, period. With everything going on with how the virus is transmitted, the CEO, they said they've heard thousands upon thousands of retailers saying they can't get the service to the customers. They're not getting the foot traffic. They've done curbside delivery or in person just to try to meet up. And because that they're not sure of how the virus is contaminated, they're going to stop production of the new comics. They don't want to, have somebody touch it and pass it, and somehow that could be the contagion. We do know that already, distribution centers in New York, California, and Pennsylvania were already closed before they made this final announcement. So when you think about those three areas, it's huge, right? California and the whole tri-state area not getting, distribution in comics. It makes sense on a business side for Diamond Comics to say, hey, we're going to stop here. So, of course, you guys might assume that me and Kris here are both freaking out because we live and eat and breathe comic books, and now we're not going to get those physical copies in our hand. It's very worrisome. And so we want to discuss a couple of things. But first, what does this mean for all those small businesses, all those comic book shops that are out there, Kris?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, it means that a lot of them aren't going to exist anymore. I think, when you have an unprecedented event like this, where, we haven't seen a pandemic like this in 100 years, there's a lot of kind of trial and error with every aspect of the world, not just comics. Unfortunately, we have to face facts, right? Like, our health system is extremely underprepared for this, which makes no sense when we live in the country we live in. And unfortunately, I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but that's just the reality. And, the social distancing isn't the new quirky term that's out. It's what we have to do. And I've been calling it more physical distancing.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much a social interaction as physical.
Yeah, because we're socially interacting. You guys watching, we're interacting. Yeah. Physical distancing makes more sense. It's not as catchy on the news, so that's
not as catchy. Yeah. But I think as far as comics and comic stores, they're also going through trial and error. I think a part of Diamond tried to last as long as it could, because it knows how it's going to affect not only writers and artists who are continuously making the new products and the creatives behind it, but obviously the little guys, right? Your local comic store.
And the indie people, right? They're going to take a huge hit. The writers and artists, even more so than Marvel and DC, because they have that cushion. Theoretically, their jobs are still going to be there, right? Because they're big companies. These other ones, they kind of work for themselves and work and have a dealership with Image. If their books don't sell, they don't really get a lot of money. Yeah,
and it's going to be really tough. And there's been, unfortunately, comic artists that are known that have already, looking for help with the Hero Initiative, which is a lovely organization that you can donate money to, and it will help with, food, supplies, healthcare to comic writers and artists. I know Rags Morales, who was a huge artist in the late 90s, early 2000s, recently was like, I need help. Like, this is crazy. And he reached out to the Hero Initiative. There's a big article on him you can look up. Mm-hmm. But as far as everything going on now, it's tough. I think there's a lot of blame you could put on a bunch of things right now. I think you could blame Marvel and DC for kind of not coming out and saying we have a plan for this, we have a plan for that. They're still figuring stuff out.
Nobody really has a plan for this, which, everybody's trying to figure out what the best way to do it, because I understand from their perspective, all right, we give out a physical object. People aren't really going out unless it's for necessities. One, it's hard for people to even spend money on things that aren't a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And, objectively speaking, comic books aren't, right? It's not food, it's not water, it's not toilet paper.
It's not, you mean vitamins and medicines that help counteract instead of toilet paper.
Whatever you want to do. So like they are, in a rock and a hard place. So I get it. But now my question, and my train of thought moves now towards the digital side, right? Yeah. So digital comics, the sales and the appeal to them have been increasing year in, year out, right? Not necessarily to the detriment of the hard print, just a fact.
Yeah.
Now, does this mean that digital comics are going to be the way we survive this? And by we survive, I mean like, hardcore readers like me and you who want the new stuff. Are we going to be able to buy the stuff digitally and still do it? Are they just going to put a production halt on everything? Do you think the big two are going to do? Do you think, essentially I'm asking, is digital comics the solution to still getting that content out there?
Yeah, I think there's two options with that. The first option would be that the big two continues to just, stay on the schedule that's out there. And next Wednesday, first week of April, releases all digital. I think that will absolutely kill comic stores. I think
it will.
I think all of the, the millions of hardcore fans that still get paper books, including myself, will be completely turned off by that and will not get it. And it will not only kill comic stores and, they're going to get pressure, right? Because you have Marvel has their Marvel Unlimited, DC has their own digital. Comixology is owned by Amazon. I'm sure Amazon's putting pressure on the big two as well.
Yeah, like they release the books digital and hard copy each week.
Yeah.
Like they're always an option. So like.
Yeah, and you could buy, if there's certain books, I know Marvel does this a lot where you buy a Marvel book and they have a code in there, you get a free digital copy.
Which is awesome.
I mean, it is, but it's not. I don't think digital is the answer. I think digital is the answer if you want to kill the medium immediately. I don't think digital is going to save comics. I think comics right now has very limited options with, we know a bunch of stores are going to end up closing. I know my local comics shop is pretty good right now. And he's doing a bunch of new stuff where, he's putting everything up you can buy on the website, right? Whether it's you need backs and boards, boxes, wall books, like the rarer books you can buy and pay away. I know I have a bunch of books that, are rare books that are sitting there in my cubby, and I kind of told them, hey, as long as I'm continuously, making my normal income from my job, I will pay you an average of what I get my comics per week towards those books that I owe you for anyway.
Yeah.
So, every little bit helps. He's doing he has a van where he's going to load the van up and do home delivery for back supplies and stuff like that. And
these comic book stores are essentially now they're being forced to evolve, right? And it's not a bad thing. As much as I want to say a lot of stores are going to close, but the stores that are going to survive this and thrive are going to be the ones that take this and view this as all right, we need to change. Like you're a local comic book store, right? They're like, okay, we need to develop a website to push this. Okay, more businesses need to have a website when they're selling their product, right? So they can hit two different markets. He's doing what he needs to do, jumping in the cart, pushing on. These are people that aren't going to give up, right? They're going to do their networking on social medias, on every platform that they have. I think he has a podcast as well. He's going to say it on his podcast. He's going to do everything he can to evolve. But what's going to be hurtful to, both me, you, and a lot of other fans out there, that some of these local comic book stores are owned by the older generation that don't necessarily adapt to change as fast as efficiently as the younger people. Not true of everybody. Yeah, right? Not true of everyone, but that is some people. I've been to a couple of comic book stores in Jersey. They're owned by, very old men who don't have a website, have no plan on doing it. Mm-hmm. So those stores are in big risks.
Yeah.
So do I think digital comics are the answer? I say no. As much as I love digital, I view this as the same debate when you're looking at movie theaters and streaming, right?
Yeah.
Getting the comic book, going to the comic book store, it's an event, right? I'm going to the store. I'm more likely to spend more money because I'm going there. I'm going to find stuff that I didn't know about because I'm talking to other people. That social interaction is a huge part of that fandom, right? It's just like going to movies. I love going to movies, sitting in there, having a bunch of random people I don't know in there, laugh at the jokes with me, and enhances the movies for me. Mm-hmm. Some people, just like to sit and quiet. Everybody's different. So, like, as much as the medium is taking a big hit with this pandemic, I think it won't die out, not because of efficiency, of money or anything like that. If this was only based on money and based on what is more the smarter idea, what is more profitable, they would have dropped to digital a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But it's the nostalgia of these hardcore comics, the want of the comic book fans to still keep these comics that are still going to be there and probably still be there for years and years to come. Like, everybody can sit back and be like, oh, streaming's going to kill theaters. Oh, digital comics are going to kill hard copies. They only can and will if people want them to. And I think people have that heart in them. They're like, no, this is an event. This is something I like to do. There's too many people out there who still love and appreciate the art form of this. So that's why I think we're still going to keep it. So
yeah, no, I really hope so. And, this is obviously the biggest hit comics will be taking since probably the Great Depression, right? Right, like literally right before superhero comics were invented.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why they were invented, right?
Well, yeah, and it was out of circumstance. And I think I don't see print comics ever fully going away. I think there's an option here, right? Like, based on how much money is lost and how many stores close, comics could kind of almost become something like vinyl, right? Like, where you go to a record store and vinyl's popular again because it's a collector's item, because it's something that is an original form of something. It's a first print, technically, of what that is. Whether they do a mix of almost like television or movies, right? You see a lot of more indie movies and a lot more kind of like the lower class movies saying, hey, we're not even going to go into theaters and spend the money to market for a theater to make, $9 million opening week. We're going to go straight to Netflix, or we're going to go straight to on demand. And we're going to make our money and save our money that way. Maybe the comics do that, right? Where like your mini and max series are straight, digital or hardcover graphic novels.
So I'm glad you brought up graphic novels, because that's another angle I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
So right now we are in the method of single issues, right? We get single issues, and then eventually it gets re-released into, a trade back, which is, like a regular graphic novel. And then if it's popular enough or big enough, it gets collected with another couple of them. It does a hard copy, right? It does a hard book. I'm a big sucker for that kind of stuff, right? What if comics evolve and change from single issues to changing to the graphic novels? Like, all right, you get the digitals, they come out weekly, sure. The end of the month or the end of the arc, you're going to get that graphic novel, and that's the physical medium. I don't think that's going to happen now. I think that might happen when we're like 60, 70, right?
Maybe. I mean,
what do you think of that approach?
Yeah, I think everything evolves in transitional phases, right? Like, it's the same thing with the video game industry. Like, when a new game system comes out, like, how is it evolving? It's not always the full 30-step approach. It's kind of like maybe a half step or a full, or one baby step. I think maybe the first instance of that would be like the books that aren't as popular going to that format if they had to.
I can see that.
Your characters that aren't getting, your biggest appeal, like Martian Manhunter had a 12-issue series. Maybe that just comes out and
maxi series and mini series come out in the trade backs, and then maybe probably Image, because they sell lower, right? Those will probably come back into just trades like that.
Yeah, but some of their books are really popular. Like, I don't think Spawn would do that ever. I don't think Batman would ever be in just trade format, or Superman or Spider-Man, or
I'm saying like
big time books.
Smaller. Like, I think what you said is even more accurate to what I was initially stating. Like, that's what you said is like the half step before my step, right? So it's like, it's the mini series, the maxi series, the smaller indie books, smaller characters might be doing that.
Yeah.
And the big names, they keep.
Maybe. And I think what's scary is that you have, we were just talking about this like a month ago. You all right? You dying?
Yes. Give me that. I really need water. Hold on.
Yeah, so I think with the aspect of, hey, we can go to these half steps, I think the scary part is like a month and a half ago, we just talked about AT&T and the DC Comics division, right? Where there was rumors going around that they were going to shut down DC Comics comic division because it's just not a moneymaker for them. And the property is what they want, right? The rights to those characters to do movies and TV and pop culture, boom right now that Marvel, Studios basically created. But it's not so much the comic books. Mm-hmm. And that's what's scary now, where it's like, crap, is this, more fuel to the fire to be like, yeah, look at this. Like, what are we doing? We're throwing, we're trying to put out a house fire with a bucket. So I hope it doesn't, because, I feel like, I don't think it will, because I feel like in comics in general, not just because I don't want it to, but it's been hit with the Great Depression. It's been hit with World War I, World War II, Vietnam, a billion recessions, 9/11, like all these things that have 90210, the OSIG, all these things that have happened in the history of not just culture but American culture as far as comic books are concerned, have hit it hard in different areas where the comics code, where parents were throwing comics
right,
and kids weren't even allowed to buy them, and the entire rights organizations and legal problems. I think comics kind of every couple of years hits it and kind of has a renaissance afterwards, right? Where we come out of this and it's like
a whole new generation,
new stories, these new ideas that focus on society. The first thing I remember is the Superman issue of 9/11 and the Spider-Man issue of 9/11. Where Superman's standing in 9/11 like this tiny little figure, and all the firemen are like huge, and that shot like will linger with me forever. And Spider-Man with the entire Avengers and Wolverine clawing through 9/11 rubble to find people and save people, the blackout. So like stuff like that, I think comes out of circumstance, right? Comics come out of circumstance. These are heroes, morally just characters. I think we have an opportunity here to not only fight to keep this alive by, number one, helping your local comic shop.
Yes.
If you can, if you are able to. If you have books that are backlogged, like I do so much, figure out a payment plan. I'm going to pay my local comic store, even though there's no new books, an average of what I normally pay for every week to pay off some of those books so I can get my books.
Yeah.
But, if you have the ability to do so, if you're like, hey, I need to rearrange my comics, they're a mess, see if you can get some long boxes or short boxes, bags and boards. Yeah. Any little bit will help right now. So hopefully when this kind of subsides, my guess is it's probably going to be through summer, maybe August, September. So
that was the final question I want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
When do we think this is going to bounce back? When do we think we're going to get these new comics back out? You're saying September? You think that's when it's going to be?
Maybe. I think maybe. It's hard to tell because
I'm thinking June.
I mean, again, I'm not. You're the optimist out of both of us.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to tell, and again, I'm not a medical expert, and neither is Rob. But
sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the moment, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think there's especially in the areas we are, right? New York, you said it before. Diamond had to shut down New York, California, Pennsylvania right away. Those are top 5 hard hit areas. California, New York being 1 and 2, and Jersey being 3 because we're next to New York.
Right next to
so I don't know if the curve, as they keep talking about, is gonna slow as much. For these areas and spread. There's a lot of people not listening to social distancing. There's a lot of idiots going to spring break, a lot of age groups that don't think they're invincible. There's, which is completely not true. There's a lot of different things going on where people are like, even there's talks about celebrities where it's like, no, I'm going to continue living my life and doing stuff. It's like, you're going out and talking to a billion people and meeting a billion people. You possibly get them infected. So
all it takes is one. All it takes is one.
All it takes is one, and this is serious. So it needs to be treated as serious, and that curve needs to fall. China just got their curve down. They opened up their movie theaters with, they were going to put Avengers and all these big stuff to draw people back. They had to close it 3 days later. You know what I mean? Like, they opened too early. So it's going to be, really tough to gauge. I'm telling you, it's going to get worse before it gets better. A lot of people are like, oh, the summer will help because COVID-19 is, similar to the flu and it dies in the heat kind of thing.
We'll see.
It's similar, but it's not the same. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we don't really know for sure. I can't see this curve kind of slowing down till maybe August, September, next school year-esque, if we're talking.
Maybe,
and hopefully, and hope, certain comic stores can thrive and sell stuff. They have wall books, back issues, collected stories. That's a big thing in comic shops, right?
Yeah,
I didn't get this miniseries and it's a hit. Like, I didn't get Vision when it came out and it's a hit. Oh, I have the full collection that you could buy for $100, all 12 issues.
Right.
Boom. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. So, we'll see what happens. It's unfortunate, and hopefully comics don't disappear the way of everything else might be, because that would not only suck for me because I have 4,000 comics, but it would just be really awful for kind of the country we live in when there's not much that we have that's something that's been so centered for that long.